All right, so welcome everyone. Nice to have you here. Also welcome to those who are listening to this online. Now today we have another question from Peter. These are lots of old questions that I'm slowly working through. So today, question is, in Western society we are taught that we are separate beings. In Buddhism it is taught that there is no self and that everything is connected through awareness. I still find it hard to fully understand this. Could you explain what is meant? It's quite a profound question. Maybe a good idea to shortly give an introduction to what is meant by not self. The Buddha was talking about not self or anatta before we go a little bit deeper into the implications of not self and what that means to be in a society with other people, with other beings around us and so forth. And awareness also, what role awareness plays, connection, separation, and all that. So the Buddha has very often taught on the higher levels of his teachings about not self. And not self, very often also referred to as anatta. Atta means self. And an is a negation, so it means a not self. Sometimes it's translated as no self. That is not entirely correct, actually. No self, there is such a thing as a self. Yes, it's more about the way it exists that the Buddha was investigating. The Buddha was like looking into, you can say, the way that self exists. Mm-hmm. And he found out that self that appears to us exists a bit like a dream, in an illusionary way. It isn't real. It isn't something that you can kind of pull out of a person, that you can pull out of the mind or pull out of the body or pull out of our surroundings somehow, and then you have this concrete thing that is a self, an entity, a being. Instead, you do have a lot of elements that are playing together and that are governed by the law of causality, cause and result. So for example, you have the body, the human body, which is unquestionably very, very complex. It's a very complex conglomerate of various parts and particles of cells, of atoms, and so forth. And so this is our material aspect. The body consisting of its various parts. You can, for example, separate the body into coarse parts. You can say that those are the arms, the legs, ears and eyes, the sense organs, the skin, the muscles, the bones, the fluids, the solids, air, energy, warmth, coldness, space, and so forth. You can separate the body into all these various elements. Maybe the smallest element that we currently know that we can talk about would be like an atom. Makes sense maybe to talk on the level of atoms now. So we can all say that the body is consisting of atoms, right? That is something that science has shown, and it is also something that is over and over again spoken about in the old texts, in the ancient texts. But there it is more called like dust, or smallest particle, or something like that. smallest part. Now, we wouldn't say that we own atoms. I wouldn't go about saying that I own this carbon atom. That's my carbon atom. It would be kind of weird to say that. Those are my helium atoms. They belong to me. And those helium atoms over there, they are not mine. They're yours. On the level of atomic substance, to talk about an owner of atomic compositions, of parts and particles, would be quite ridiculous. In the same way, if you go into in a larger image of the cosmos, and you speak of an owner of a planet, this is my planet, that's your planet, and so forth. And then also we wouldn't say things like, I am a carbon atom, or I am a helium atom. We wouldn't even feel like we are an atom. Or like, let's say, a few atoms coming together. I am a bunch of atoms. We wouldn't say this kind of thing. Yet we do feel that we are a bunch of atoms. Very often we feel that we are a body. Or we would feel as the owner of a body. We could feel, for example, that's my body. Or we could feel fully identified with the body, and then we say things like, I'm a man, I'm a child, I'm a woman. That means you're fully identified with a bunch of atoms. We're not calling it like that. We say, in a simple term, we say, I am a man. But that's what we actually say when we say that I'm a man. We say that I'm a bunch of atoms which appear in that particular shape temporarily. That's what I am. And that feels very solid. It feels very rigid also, like unchangeable. And then sometimes you look into the mirror and something about this atomic mass has changed slightly over the years, and then you say, I am getting older. Then you don't like looking into the mirror too much, or you don't like if someone takes pictures of you. You know, this is very pervasive. We feel I'm taking a picture of me, a selfie. But what is displayed on that picture is just skin. It's just meat. Some meat. There's a lot of meat on this world. Unquestionably. There is a lot of bones, a lot of meat, a lot of blood wobbling around on this planet in various different forms and shapes. And we are heavily identified with it. It's almost like being identified with a car, isn't it? Police officer stops you. I give this example before. You let the window down, and then the officer asks you, who are you? And you would say, I'm a BMW. You wouldn't say that. You would say, I'm in the BMW, right? And sometimes we would feel like that also. We would feel like I'm in the body. Sometimes we would feel like we are the body. Then at other times we feel like that's a possession of ours. That's my body. That's your body. And at other times we feel like we are in the body. And sometimes we feel like we're out of the body also. The so-called OBEs, out-of-body experiences, which are scientifically documented experiences of people that can verify, for example, information that is in another room that would have been impossible to see, and they would be in a coma or something like this and come back from their coma and then be able to report. Or after a car accident or something, there's a story of a woman who actually was brought into a hospital, and she kind of came in and out of life, you can say. And she reported that she was just up on the roof of the hospital and she saw an old tennis shoe on top of the roof. And the tennis shoe looked like this and like that. And of course the doctors were all like, yeah, of course. There's an old tennis shoe on top of the roof. And she insisted and she said, go and check. And yes, It was verified. It was an old tennis shoe on the roof of the hospital. How could she have seen? These kind of things. There's a lot of these kind of stories. Now, whether they are actually true or not, leave it aside. There are these kind of experiences. People do make an experience as being out of the body, or in the body, or an owner of the body, or the body. The same is true for the mind, of course. The intellectual coming together of various mental parts, roles that we play, thoughts that we have, emotions that we're holding, which is a bit like a body, really, the mental body. I was just referring to the mental body in this meditation. Concepts, ideas, personalities, your psychology, in short. It's like a body. And sometimes you might be identified feeling as if you were that body. You can say, I'm so angry right now. Then you are like feeling like you are that angry mind that has just temporarily manifested. You can also say things like, I'm an intellectual, or I am a doctor. It is the mind that's a doctor. The body is not a doctor, right? You're not born and in the hospitals someone is pulling you out of your mom and they say like, oh, it's a doctor. Because they can identify that somehow by seeing your body. Bodies are not doctors, minds are. It's a particularly conditioned mind that can be feeling itself as if it was a doctor. And it is. And you can be identified with that. But then you come back home and then you are a father. Suddenly it has changed. And then your family is kind of upsetting you in various ways. And then you suddenly feel like you are angry. As there are various ways that pass through the mind like wind, various emotions, feelings, and so forth, joy, happiness, anger, frustration, all that, it can pass through and we can feel as if we were what is passing through. And we usually do. It's almost like as if these passing through these winds, these spirits that are passing through our being, like anger and joy and happiness and so forth, as if it's almost like we are possessed by them temporarily. And in a moment of possession, we forget ourselves. We become the possessing entity. The mental entity. I'm so angry right now. I'm so happy right now. You can also feel like you are the owner of your mental content. That is possible too. We are often doing that. We're often feeling as if we were the owner. This is my opinion. I think that my thoughts are like this and like that. And very often meditators say, I have too many thoughts. You feel as the owner of thoughts. Somehow, you're very involved with the content that you feel that you're owning. It keeps you busy day in and day out because you're so close to it. You're the owner of it. It's my thoughts, my mind. How can I get rid of my thoughts? I have too many emotions. I am emotional. So you're going from the owner to the being itself. I am emotional. I have too many emotions. You can feel like you're out of your mind too. Totally out of my mind right now. Whatever that means. You can feel like in your mind, out of your mind, the owner of your mind. These various ways. It's just like the body. Therefore, you can refer to the mind as the mental body. You can refer to suffering as the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle does very often. He refers to the pain body. You can refer to the bliss body equally. Various births that you take. Like, let's say anger passes through your being, or confusion. You don't get it. You don't understand what I'm talking about. So that passes through your being, and there's a tendency to become that. I don't know what Tobi's talking about right now. This just doesn't make any sense. Or this is too complicated. I'm lost. No, you're not. That there is a temporary state of confusion that has arisen, but that's not who you are. And it's not yours either. It is simply a conditioned phenomenon that arises due to its causes, namely this talk, or someone else talking something. Like if you're listening to a talk on quantum mechanics or something like this, and you're totally lost. It's like Chinese. And I'm so confused. What does it mean? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. No, there is a part of you that feels like it needs to get it, and it can't. It feels like it can't get it. That's that part. And it will come and it will go when the causes for it are exhausted. Then it dies. As for someone that is unconscious, for someone that has no awareness and mindfulness, they get continuously reborn into various states, the body or the mind. Whereas being reborn as a physical state, I am ill, I am healthy, I am a man, I'm a woman, etc., is not that dramatic. What is really dramatic and what is of concern in this world is being reborn into mental states. I am pro this, I am against that. You are wrong, I am right. And here's why you're wrong. Blah, 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 whatever. I still remember what you did to me 2 years ago. I can't forgive you. These are all mental formations that arise and pass continuously that we take really seriously. And why would we take those mental formations so seriously? Because they relate to and pertain to a self. Me. The center of this universe. And quite literally, that sense of self that we have, the ego, feels or experiences itself as the center of the universe. We wouldn't admit that because it's uncool. You wouldn't say things like, hey, I'm the center of the universe, guys. But the feeling is very much so. And how can we know? The simple statement, oh, it's a beautiful universe around me. I'm surrounded by this amazing universe. You are surrounded by it. That is the sense of separation. Here's me, there's the universe. And I'm looking at it. We take it even further into a religious context. Here's me, there's God. Separation, isn't it? And if that's not the most cunning work of the devil, then what is? You could even go that far and say that that self in itself is the devil. What is more separate from God than I? What is further away from God than me praying to God? And that's probably what the devil would do, right? It wants to come back home to daddy. In a way. The devil wants to come back home. He wants to go back into paradise. It's the fallen angel, the fallen piece of the puzzle that feels itself is so separate. That in itself it claims to be God in a way, and acts as if it was God in many ways. That's what ego does. It's precisely what ego does. It feels as if it was the creator, the owner of life, the one who runs life, the one who makes decisions, the one who has will, intent and power. I can change my life. I have will. I can do this. I can do that. But all we leave behind is a trail that's pretty messy. Undeniable. There's enough proof in history books. There's a split personality of humankind. You have on one hand the virus that seeks to destroy, own, govern and manage. And on the other hand, you have an immune system which seeks to maintain balance, which seeks to heal, which seeks to help and construct. There's these two kind of minds that are manifesting through our flesh, wreaking havoc on this planet. That which leads to a psychic breathing in and a psychic breathing out on this planet. Wars and peace, birth and death, destruction and construction. Constantly going on, second by second, throughout history. And all that can be the way it is because we don't see, we don't wake up. We still feel as the owner, the governor, the manager, God, the one living a life, the one doing life. That's ego. Life is God. I like in that way the Christian terminology is very powerful. It is something that relates to many Westerners also. It's our home religion, so to say. So our roots. This striving to come home to God is our very fundamental desire to feel good, to be at peace, to be comfortable, to experience paradise. And the ego has only very limited tools to achieve that. It's the limited tool of will, power, control, deception, force, doing. That's the tool of the ego. And the tools of the ego, they lead to a world as we know it. A world of extremes, good and bad, black and white, me and you, mine and yours, we and them. That's the only thing ego knows, to divide and to own and to govern. But it is fundamentally devoid of any spiritual principles. In order to introduce spiritual principles, we have to wake up. And it is not the ego that wakes up, but it is consciousness that wakes up to the ego. And that is a process that you cannot do. It is a process that is nourished by being, by consciousness itself, by waking up itself. And you start off with baby consciousness, mindfulness training, small consciousness, and you nourish it. And yes, there is doing, and it is required in the beginning, very much so. You have to establish a habit of waking up. So in a way, you can say it is the mind, the egoic consciousness, or the ego mind that starts for a real spiritual practitioner to destroy itself. It eats up itself. For example, my thoughts go almost all day long, oh, you should be more mindful. Wake up. My thoughts are constantly like this. Oh, feel your feet, feel your feet. You're walking right now, you're walking, are you feeling your feet? So my mind is almost like a teacher that kills itself. That's what you want. This is an automatic kind of process that is going on. That's why we train. the training to go beyond thinking into directly knowing. That is the empowering step to awareness. You're handing over to consciousness. You allow consciousness to do the work. You allow awareness to do the work of waking up, because it is already awake. And it has the power to break through everything that is not you, that is not self. Just through the sheer power of seeing clearly. The term for seeing clearly is vipassana, which is literally translated as clear seeing. And stabilizing in that, slowly, again and again, bringing more and more wakefulness into your daily life. More and more stillness into your daily life will naturally reveal to you that there is no such thing as a self. And you will see that thing very clearly when your thinking stops. That's where the magic happens. That's where real spiritual practice takes place. Always taking place in a realm of no thought. No thought as you know it. Why could it be that? Why would they? And should I? And all that kind of stuff is faded away there. All these kind of autopilot stories in your head, they stop. That's where spiritual practice starts. The little voice in your head, when it shuts up for a little while, that's when the seeing starts. That's when you start to wake up. Or literally, you wake up from a dream. The narrative in your head is not the truth. It is simply a conditioned narrative in your head. It's what you've learned. So now, are we all connected in awareness or not? To be honest, I don't know. And I also don't care. Are we all connected or not? I don't know. But I'm comfortable with not knowing. It's okay not to know, intellectually, something. Also don't know how many stars are in the universe. Are they all connected? Through matter or energy? I don't know. And now if I would know, let's say that. Let's say, we'll just somehow figure it out. Yes, all stars are connected through energy. It's one network of energy. Inseparable. One. Only appearing separate through the interplay of darkness and light. Ah, yeah. But I would still suffer when I'm standing in a long queue and I have no time left. I really have to get to the appointment. Then I would still suffer if someone cuts me off on the street. So here I bring the former knowledge of not self into my confusion. I see, it's not my confusion, it is just confusion, not my business. It is something that comes and goes, that arises and passes, but I'm not feeding it with self, with making it my confusion, or feeling as if I was the confusion. I see it for what it is. Just a condition that comes and goes. That is release. You're not holding it. And if you can feel that, sense that, this is very intuitive right now. This is not something that you can intellectually solve. This is not a puzzle for your mind. Come into this very moment. Notice that things are appearing to you. Then notice and become aware of what it is that those things are appearing to. That is awareness. And sure enough, there is no word that would adequately describe this experience of just simply knowing. Words for it just come and go there, have no significance and importance in there. That's what you want to experience directly. You can say it's your center, the core of yourself. Consciousness. That it is nothing that you own, that you control or govern, and that can be quite scary for the ego, and that's why it takes such a long time for many people to wake up. They don't want to go into that space where that most important principle, me, doesn't exist. It cannot figure anything out, it doesn't understand anything there. It has no ground. The rug is pulled underneath its feet. There. It is seen for what it is, just like a mirage. The closer you get, the less you find. There's no substance to it. It's a bubble. And in that state, it is not relevant whether something is connected or separate. That is relevant only for the intellectual mind. Is all awareness one, or is it many? Principles such as one and many have no footing there. They can't be sustained there. They are irrelevant there. Such is the power of a mind in which thinking has come to a complete halt, to an end, and in which seeing is fully empowered. And that we practice. So far. You can call it a practice, something we cultivate. Each time you cultivate, you come into a space of no more cultivating. So that's a rather complex topic today. For the intellectual mind, at least, it is not so complex for the non-thinking mind. If you have listened to that thought while staying in a state of receptive openness without thinking about it, that would be best. And you can listen to that thought again in that simple receptive openness. Not trying to figure out what it means, just noticing there's sounds. There's a human being making sound. That's all there is. And it's that particular seeing of it that is important. That is vital. Can you recognize that? Right now, as I'm talking, can you recognize the listener? Rather than getting lost in the words that are said. Rather than feeling like, oh, but now he's not talking, there is some silence, getting lost in the silence. Can you recognize the one that's aware of silence? There's something to which silence appears. That's important. That's the way in. Okay, so that's all that comes to mind for today. Thank you very much for being here, and have a wonderful weekend. Next week, there won't be any classes. Next week will be closed Tuesday and Thursday, but the week after, we're back on again as usual. And then you're all welcome again.